Good morning, everybody. It's Ed Bazaar here, and we're going to speak today to a legend in music. The days before the Nintendo Switch, we had the actual band Switch, which are legends. And here we have Mr. Phillip Ingram. Thank you so much for joining me today.
A pleasure. Definitely.
I had an interview with Frank Gambale a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned to me that you're both good friends, which is such a coincidence. So I didn't know that, obviously, but and you guys did work together. Is that?
Yeah, there was a violinist by the name of Zipflo Weinrich. He was an Austrian violinist, and I met him. I did a couple of guest vocals on his records, and then we did some shows in Austria and Germany. And Frank Gambale was the guitar player, so that's when I met him with Zipflo. That was probably back in 2015, and yeah, he lives in LA and stuff. But yeah, we did quite a few shows with Zipflo, who unfortunately has died since, but he was phenomenal. I mean, and the way I met him, um, it was the engineer that was working with him, and they were here in California, and he called me if I could come in. I was supposed to do one song. When I did the one song, I ended up doing two songs, and so Zipflo and I, we had a relationship. But yeah, when he did the shows, Frank was the guitar player. We had a great. It was a phenomenal band. Jazz. If you look up Zipflo Weinrich, you'll see some stuff that we did.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. And also Austin Brown, which I spoke to him the other day, and he said to say hi because you guys
Oh
go.
yes, well, yeah. I was because the way. Do you know the story how Switch got signed to Motown?
With Jermaine Jackson, I understand. Yep.
Yes. So when Jermaine signed, we got to meet the whole family. So Austin wasn't even a thought. Daisy was a little girl, and Rebe was pregnant with Yashi. So Austin came later. So, but I've met the whole Jackson family since 1977. So that's how when Austin came along. Yeah, he was already part of the Brown family. That was Nate and Reeve's son. But yeah, that's how I've known him. I've known him since he was in Reeve's belly. So yeah, we definitely go way back.
Yeah, a lot of history there, and yeah, so he's got some music coming out, which is exciting as well. So
Yeah.
just all these musical connections you've got.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. I've been doing. I came to California in 1977, and I've been here ever since. And I came here for music. That's when Switch got signed. We came here in March of '77, May of '77. That's when we um, finished the contract and started working on our albums. Then our first album was "They'll Never Be" and "I Want to Be Closer." That did really well. Then our next album was "I Call Your Name," and so we had 5 albums on Motown during that 5 years, '77 to '82. It made a lot of, obviously a lot of connections from the people with Motown. And then my brother James had gotten famous with Quincy with Just Once. And so I did that Dude tour in 1982. And so I was working with Quincy, and then I got signed to his label, me and Zane Giles, group called Deco. So we were signed to Qwest Records. But after that, I started doing a bunch of, I got recommendations to do, movies, commercials, television stuff. Sang on a bunch of records. I was a vocal contractor. So yeah, it's been a huge career. And I still, yeah, like I said, a Switch, we still perform. We, perform from our hits. Obviously, Bobby is gone because he died. Tommy is gone. So we do have me, Eddie, Llewellyn, Greg Williams, and we're the 3 originals. But our guitar player, his name is Michael McGlory. He was Jermaine Jackson's guitar player, but he played on all our hits. So it's almost like having 4 originals. So, and it goes off very well. And the guy we have that replaced Bobby, he sounds similar to a DeBarge. So, and since we all sing and play, it works.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that there was even a dude tour. and you're in the tour. You were obviously a background vocalist, or
Yeah,
was
me,
James in that tour as well?
James. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
James is one. What happened was um when James got with Quincy, I met Quincy. They were doing all this stuff, and then um you familiar with Phil Perry? Are you
no,
familiar with Phil? Okay, he's another. Look him up. He's another great vocalist. So James started. He was doing. It was Ernie Watts, saxophone player, and Quincy was producing, and he called me and Phil Perry in to do backgrounds with him. And that's when I first met Quincy. And then we did that Donna Summer record, "Love Is in Control," "Finger on the Trigger." Everybody think that's ladies, but that's me and James and Phil Perry. We're singing that. So then James said, um, by then I already knew Quincy. He said, "Do you want to do that dude tour?" I'm like, "Yeah." And the nice thing about that, you're talking about, the truth. I was literally just coming into the truth. But Quincy was working on the Thriller album. So most of the musicians and singers and stuff, it was me, Phil Perry, and Edie Lehman. We did all the backgrounds for that tour. And James and Patty, like if Patty was singing, Patty Austin was singing a song, then James would also sing background, vice versa. And then, when they did their duets, it was just the three of us. But yeah, we did that. And but Quincy was only gone on the weekends. We did a show either a Saturday or a Sunday, and they were home midweek because they were working on the Thriller album. So yeah, that was nice. The, you look around, there's some pictures of that. If you actually, if you go to my website, you will see that picture of the whole. You know what? Here, let me see if I can show you this one right quick. Flip this around. Let me see. I don't know how can is this? Can you see that?
there's me. I see myself.
Oh,
The reflection.
okay. Let me see.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool, cool, cool.
yeah, that's the picture of that tour. Greg Gaines, Quincy Jones, Ollie Brown, me, Phil Perry, James, Patty. I mean, John Robinson. What I mean, it was just Lewis Johnson was on bass. I mean, it's
Wow.
just it was it was yeah. So after doing it, I started working with a whole bunch of people. And I was already known from Switch, but that's when I started working with um, Walter Afanasieff was starting to do a bunch of records. He was a hit producer. I became his vocal contractor, and then Peter Wolf, I became his vocal contractor. So they both are having. I mean, literally 80s and 90s. I'm on a lot of hit records, singing background and stuff, and guest vocals.
That Walter, I forgot the
Afanas
he
Afanasieff.
did a lot of things with Mariah Carey, didn't he?
Yes. He
Mm.
produced well. In the original days, he did a lot of stuff with her, Celine Dion, Barbara Streisand, and yeah, we did a lot of records together. Kenny G, he did Kenny G. Yeah,
Now talking about the dude. Now that for me, I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm a result of my parents' vinyl
right,
collection.
right,
So,
right.
and that was one of them here in Australia, the Dude album, and I used to listen to that, and I mean, and back in the day, we used to read the liner notes and see who's playing and who's in this and that, and like
Of
that.
course.
Stevie Wonder is in there. MJ's in there in the background vocals. The Toto Boys. Steve Lukather is
Yep.
one of my favorite guitarists ever. I mean, that was back when he was doing more of the session, or basically anything like the funky R&B
Right.
stuff. He's more rock these days, but and then what? Jeff Porcaro, David Page. Oh man, what a group of musicians that you were a part of as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's interesting. I did a bunch of Total records too, and the way I met them, Michael McDonald. Here, let me see. Man, it's so much. I should send you my. Let me see. I don't know if you can see this picture. This is a session with, me with Toto. There's David Page, Jeff Porcaro, and Steve Lukather. Did you see that?
Yes.
So that's what I'm
Uh,
saying. It's I've done a whole bunch, and I met them through Michael McDonald. So it's
Actually, I
So
think Mike McDonald was also in the dude. Like, I think wasn't he doing background vocals on one of the tracks or
I don't.
playing keys? Something?
They start working together when James did "Yamo Be There" with Michael.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, and that's when I met Michael. Michael, and see Peter Wolf. He had me and Michael doing a bunch of background vocals on a bunch of records. So him and I got really close. And then through him, I met David Pack from Ambrosia. So it's just all these connections, and they were all doing a lot of music at the time. But yeah, but
yeah,
total. I'll I'll have to send you um my what you call it, my credits and stuff.
yeah. Of course, of course. And they're one of my favorite bands ever. Toto, for obvious reasons, because they're
Oh
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
But just the musicianship, obviously, because I mean they were everything in the '80s, weren't they? Like in a lot of
Oh yeah,
ways.
oh yeah.
Um, and, and just to know that, and just to see what they did on their own was just phenomenal. But
And
uh,
they
who are the,
David Page and them, they wrote Human Nature. Did you know that?
I know Caro,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
and they're
there
all
you
on the
go.
track. Like the guitar, oh, the genius guitar work of Steve. I mean, he does everything. I mean, just in the mood of the song. Like he's mainly rock these days, rock fusion, but he
Right.
does everything. He's a master guitarist, and Steve Porcaro, a master of melody, I'd have to say.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, Steve Lukather, I haven't read it, but when I was working with Sheena Easton, the guitar player, his name was Dave Hart. Steve wrote a book. It's called The Gospel According to Luke. Lukather. And Dave, I haven't read it, but Dave said I'm actually mentioned in that book. I'm like, really? So I had no idea. So I haven't read it, but I have to find that clip to find out, what did he say? But it was favorable in essence.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he speaks so highly. I mean, from the interviews I've seen and what I've read, he speaks so highly of everyone from that era of just the
Oh yeah.
musicianship with the community that they were a part of, that you were a part of. Your brother
Right.
James, Quincy,
Yep.
Rod Temperton. Obviously he wrote how many songs of the dude and like
Oh
Thriller
yeah.
and actually one of my favorite albums of that he was part of was Herbie Hancock's "Light Me Up." I think that was
Yeah.
just genius.
Yep.
You just really saw Rod was just in control
And
of that album.
Rod was part of Heat Wave, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah. So he had already had hits with the band, and then when he started working with Quincy, I mean, because he also wrote "Baby Come to Me" with James and Patty, and I worked with Rod when he did Cider Garrett's record. Him and Minnie Riperton's husband, I can't think of his name now. Dick Rudolph. Dick Rudolph. They were producing Cider, and Cider and I were doing a bunch of background vocals and stuff together. So, again, it's just that whole world. And this was again, I've actually done more outside of Switch than I did with Switch. I'm known for Switch because but behind the scenes movies. And did you ever see the movie My Best Friend's Wedding? Remember that? Julia Roberts and
uh Hugh Grant. Is it Hugh Grant?
yeah, Hugh Grant
Yeah,
and
a
yeah,
long time ago. Yeah.
of course. I'm the wedding singer at the end of the film, singing "I Say a Little Prayer for You." That's what
Oh,
I'm saying, man. You know, it's
oh, that's
I'm
right.
gonna say I'm gonna send you the credits, and
Because
now that we've met, you're gonna go back and say, "Man." So, yeah,
I remember because Diana King released the single for that album, for that movie, right? In the soundtrack.
right,
But you were in the actual film singing it. Oh, right.
yep,
Wow.
yep. So that's what I said. It's been a lot. It's been great. It's been wonderful. But yeah. So yeah, the hits and stuff with Switch, but like I said, some of the biggest hits from um 80s, 90s, because I was a vocal contractor for a lot of these producers. I mean, remember Wang Chung? Everybody Wang Chung tonight. You know what I mean? I'm singing on that. You know what I mean? I'm singing on that. Me, James, and Phil Perry are singing on Heart of Mine, oh heart by Boss Skaggs. So,
Oh,
but a lot of people don't read credits. I'm sure you do, but
oh
a lot of
yeah.
people, but yeah. So a bunch of those hits, it's like, yeah, that I'm on that stuff.
Well, I do know that's how Toto pretty much came together, was through Boz Scaggs, right?
Yep, exactly. Oh yeah.
Mm.
They were session musicians, but they all got together and they phenomenal guys. I mean, all of them was great. And from them, I met Kim Carnes and I started working with her. So it's like, you know, the thing is, the musicianship is one thing, but if you're easy to work with, and you make it pleasurable, you're going to get work because people recommend. And so, like I said, I got recommended to Total from Mike McDonald. They recommended me to Kim Carnes, you know what I mean? That type of thing. And so, and that's how I met David Pack. And first thing we did together, you remember the David Benoit record, that song called The Key to You? That
I don't,
good things will come your way. It's a beautiful song. Anyway, that's when I met David Pack, and then we started doing stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, but again, if I did a thing of I've spoken at high schools and stuff with up and coming choruses and bands, and I said, if you're a jerk, I'd ask him. I said, which did you think is going to give you longevity, being cocky or being confident? And of course, if you're confident, because you got to believe in yourself. If you're cocky, no, there's too much talent out here. So
it's a difference. I think that works in life in general. I think sort
yeah,
of mentality. Yeah. Mm.
exactly. Yeah,
Mm. So you were born in Akron, Ohio, in
exactly.
1958.
It- yep.
Look, 1958. Who was born in that year? Michael Jackson, Prince,
Yep.
Madonna, Kate Bush, Anita Baker. I got a list of names: Ice T, Vernon Reid from Living Color, and Frank Mbalim. I mean, what is it about this 1958 year that is just genius musicians? What is
That's
it?
funny. That's funny. I have no idea, but in Akron, we you ever heard of Howard? You remember the group Shalimar?
Yes.
So here's what happened. Me and Eddie Fluellen, we were in a local band called Raw Soul back in Akron, like I said, since I was 14 years old. My brother James was in a band called Revelation Funk. Well, Howard Hewitt was in a band called Life. And, we were all performing around Akron, Ohio. Our group made it first with Switch. And then Howard Hewitt, Shalimar, remember the second time around? That's and it's for the lover in you. That's all. That's Howard Hewitt. He's from Akron, and then James later with Just Once with Quincy. So the four of us were from Akron. But we grew up, doing music all around the city, all around Ohio, and everything. And that's where we got our what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I'll say our foundation. And it's funny, what works back then still works. Like when we're performing, you know what I mean? You want to get little things like get the audience involved, not just singing the song, but people want to hear stories, all that stuff. We were doing that stuff back then, and we still do it. And they're like, "Man, you guys are so." But if it works, keep it. If it don't work, throw it out. But yeah, that was our learning ground. And then we came out here and started working with a plethora of people, which is was really nice. And so, and I worked with some jerks.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
So Akron was. I mean, California is where the all the that's where the scene was at, right? Is where to take your music to the next level, right?
yeah. Because back then, funny, I just did a thing at a school about a week or so ago with a buddy of mine at his high because his daughter goes there. But back then, all you could do is play in clubs. There was no social media. There was nothing. So you had to get out of. You could go to New York. They had limited stuff. They did some records there, but California, you could do records, movies. I mean, they had so much more going on. So that's why we came to California, and it worked. But nowadays, people send me files that I do stuff from the house. You know what I mean? But that didn't exist back then. And I was telling the kids the other day, I said, I said, you got to look at it. What happened with us? We had to put songs together. I mean, go and record them, then pound the pavement to get a record company to believe in us, like we believed in ourselves. Then they would put something out. Then we became famous. Now people are famous on social media, don't even have a hit. You know what I mean? So it's flipped. And so I was telling them, so how do you get heard in this, just because anybody could put anything out there nowadays. Back then you couldn't. So, and I think that's why we've had this longevity for the years. It wasn't just like, you know, up and down. Even though Switch, we had 5 years, we sold about 8 million albums in the 5 years we were there. But we left Motown in '82, and from '82 to now, here we're in 2024. I've done, like I said, I've done a lot, work with a lot of different people. So,
Mm.
and the thing is, I never got, I just viewed it all as a blessing. Never wigged out like I'm Philip. No, and I have to thank my parents for that because I remember I was doing a radio interview years ago. Uh, um, Patrice Banks used to be with Graham Central Station. They called her Chocolate, and she had a radio station, and we've done sessions together. He said, "Philip, when Switch hit, did you wig out?" I said, "Girl, do you know my parents?" It's like I said, when we would go back, you know, they were proud of us. It was like, "Philip, take out the trash," and I mean, in other words, they kept us grounded. I mean, they're proud of their boys, but it's like, yeah, you home. I'm still daddy. So
That's great. No, I mean that's sort of a foundation. I mean, not everyone has that. I mean, especially these days.
exactly,
Totally.
yeah,
You know,
you're right.
it's more leave your child in the room and watch YouTube, but like, and you don't know what they're learning. But unless you take a firm stand, there's ways to manage it these days. But in a lot of ways, it's not happening. Like I think the foundations. Yeah, bringing up children back in the day there were good. There were good things. There were also not so good things.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but that's so obviously grounded you and set the groundwork for you for the rest of your career and your life. I mean,
It did, yeah. We didn't, because I worked with a lot of guys that it's so sad, and I think this is what I've told people. We didn't let the music industry define us, and what I mean by that, because some people, if they don't have that, who are they? You know what I mean, they have no identity. And matter of fact, I remember I was 19 years old. I mean, 18 when I came to California, and I love basketball. Like we were talking about basketball, so I'd go down the park and play basketball. And, Future just got signed to Motown, and I'm like, yeah, we're in a group. We just got signed, but there was no hits, right? We're working on a record, and oh, that's cool. And they know people can do stuff you get on a TV show that don't happen, whatever. But then the very next year, They'll Never Be was out, and it was a huge hit. I'm going to play basketball with my same buddies. Now I'm 19 years old, you know, and they're like, "Oh man, here come Philip Ingram with Switch," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." I said I was Philip Ingram last year. I'm Philip Ingram now, and I'll be Philip Ingram after Switch. I couldn't let that define me. So I was like, just introduce me as Philip Ingram. Leave it at that. But I have to thank my parents for that. Seriously.
mm, mm. Yeah,
So
definitely. And I think that's it really shows strength of character in a lot of ways. I believe not to get wrapped up in if you just stay true to who you are. I
yeah,
mean, it's more endearing to someone to people, I'd say, in the long run than someone who's just all wrapped up in themselves. So I mean, I think that's just
exactly.
really, yeah.
Oh yeah. But that's I'm sure that's what's helped me over the years to work with so many people. You know what I mean? So
Mm. Professionally as well. I mean, as you're saying, like, yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've never had a regular job. I've been doing music since I was 14 years old. So, you know, like I said, I see it as a blessing. I don't see it as, it's just a blessing. But like I
Absolutely.
said, putting these credits together, I'm like, dang man, I forgot to work with this person. I mean, it's been a lot. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I'd love to see. Now, you're from a musical family, so it's
Yes.
only natural that you would have eventually become a musician, right? So, what was that like? I mean, how did you end up doing music?
Well, it's interesting. You're right. There were six of us. It was four boys, two girls, and my oldest brother Henry. He was phenomenal. Great ear and everything. But my father was a factory worker, right? And so James was the first one that wanted to do music, but he's number three. So it was Henry, Joyce, James, Janice, David, then me. So James got in his first band when he was 14. I was 8. He used to take me on rehearsals, and I was like, "Oh man, I love this." And I knew then, I'm like, "I'm gonna do this. I don't know how." But me and James are the only two that decided to make a living out of it. None of the rest did, even though very talented, but they all went different routes. So what was interesting though, James was in California because he's 6 years older. He was 6 years older. He was 24. I'm 18. I called him because that's when our band already got together. Jermaine had already heard our demo, and we're about ready to get signed. So I called him and said, "Hey man, I'm coming out to California." He said, "For what?" And I started laughing. I said, "You ain't the only one who live in California." I said, "We got a record deal." And he's like, "What you mean you got a record deal?" But I'm in Akron and he's out in California. And I said, "James." And I told him about Jermaine. And he said, "Are you serious?" I said, "James, yes, we're coming to California." So Switch hit first before James did. And so, and even though I was the youngest, I'm 18, he's 24. And so I know we were working on our third album, might have been our fourth album, but I know we were doing some shows, and I had a new car and James kept my car. But anyway, when I came back on the break on one of the tours, he played me just once. And I said, "You over." That's I was like, what a brilliant song. I knew he was doing some demos for Berry Man and Cynthia a while. I'd met them. But they were like, he was just doing some song demos. James was a hustler. I learned a lot about hustling from him. And so that song, he did remember that song, "Never Gonna Give You Up, Gonna Hold You in My Arms Forever." They wrote that, and that got sent to Sergio Mendez. Well, they actually all three. It was another song called Right, not the Luther Here and Now, but it was a song called Right Here and Now that Bill Bentley recorded. So Barry and Cynthia wrote those. All three songs got sent to Quincy Jones. And then Quincy said, "It's Just Once" was one of them. He said, "I want to record this song and I want to use that singer." So that's how James became known. But here's what's interesting, a lot of people don't know this about James. James had a record deal on RCA Records as a solo artist, and it shows you that. I tell people that story because I said, you have to find someone who believes in you like you believe in yourself. They shelved James' first album, RCA Records. So they had this James Ingram on their label, let him go. James still hustled, did, demo to Just Once, became a household name. So that shows you sometimes people don't see the vision, and it's okay. So,
Well, I didn't know that because I know his first technically his first album was with Quincy. Obviously, produced that one.
right,
So
exactly.
I didn't know there was one before that got shelved. I mean, really? I mean,
Yes.
wow.
Oh, and if you type in Zingara, 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 there's a song called "Love's Calling" that James is singing the lead on. You ever heard that one?
No, never, never.
That was also before Quincy. He had just done that song called "Love's Calling," and it wasn't a big hit, but he was working with this group, and it was right around that time that he did the demo for Quincy. So if you look up "Love's Calling" Zingara, yeah, that was James before Just Once.
I will. I will. I mean, and sometimes it's just being at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and you just keep hustling,
Yeah.
doing, believe in, sort of thing, and
Yep.
good things happen. So,
Well, that's why I said find someone who believes in you like you
mm,
believe in yourself.
mm, mm, mm,
That's it.
mm. So, describe to me how you and James, two of the great vocalists in the 70s and 80s, funk, soul, R&B, began in the background, not as actual vocalists. I mean, how did and how how come you both were in that situation and then eventually became frontmen? I mean, can you just explain that to me? I thought that was just that's funny.
Well, because well, you know, Luther, he was a great vocalist as well, right? Luther Vandross. So what these people got to, and not everybody can do it, but you know, I come from bands. Howard Hewitt, he came from bands. James came from bands. So we already knew how to blend, you know, with other singers and stuff. Because you know, when you think about Switch, we're doing 4-part harmony. Girl, I'll be, you know. So we already knew how to blend and everything. And so did James, so did Howard, so did Luther. But we did an album one time with I can't think of his name, but phenomenal singer. And anyway, his name escapes me. Rocky. I can't think of his last name. But anyway, he couldn't blend. He was a great singer, but he couldn't blend. And so we were working with I know it's People Bryce's producer, Richard something. But anyway, he had to, it was B. James and Phil Perry and Rocky. Can't think of Rocky's last name. One man, phenomenal singer. But anyway, they had to put Rocky like behind us because he wasn't able to blend. And I was like, that's interesting. So to answer your question, we already had the experience of, you know, growing up in bands, singing backgrounds and lead, not just being a lead singer. You know, Switch, we did our own backgrounds, and people thought we were a singing group until they saw us like on Soul Train or what's that, Don Kirshner's rock concert. They're like, they're a band? Because we were having all these beautiful harmonies. And so that's why I already had that experience. So first person outside of Switch, me and Jermaine, you know, I did some stuff on his album where just him and I are doing all the backgrounds. I'm working with Tina Marie, you know, but we were all signed to Motown. But then after that, you know, because, you know, people also read credits and that's how. But we had the experience, but not every singer has that experience. But like on James's album, me and Luther and James, Howard Hewitt, we're all singing background together, you know, so, and so you got four, you know, singers that are known for their hits and we're doing background. But again, not everybody can do that. But if you know how, again, you can see the longevity too, because it's not just, you know, it's not just singing solos. So we were able to do movies. Me and James did commercials and stuff together. We're singing on a commercial that was real famous years ago called Peter Pan Peanut Butter. Singing background. But it was okay. The residuals are the same. You know what I mean? So, and honestly, there was no egos. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's like, man, I'm gonna sing. No, it was more like it's like, oh, Ed, you want to sing top? You want to sing? You know, it was a nice camaraderie. Seriously, we had a lot of fun.
That's great. Now, obviously, your brother James Ingram. I mean, you know, if you don't mind, I'd love to just get your sort of view of him, and because obviously he was amazing. I mean,
oh yeah,
he went 70s, 80s, and even 90s. I mean, my favorite album of his was the It's Real album because he went New Jack and New Jack Swing and with Teddy Riley, and it was just out of this world. I mean, it wasn't anyone else because of the power of his voice and the soulfulness. Right. The second half of the album is just all mostly ballads, and I Don't Have the Heart, and obviously was a massive hit. I mean, right. So and obviously his longevity as well, but yeah, I mean, and also like we mentioned, like you mentioned, Love Is in Control. Obviously, he had credit writing that. You can hear his voice like literally in the background vocals.
Right.
PYT, Pretty Young Thing, Michael Jackson. He wrote. So you know, I mean, and I used to imagine because obviously reading, I knew that he wrote the song, but whenever I hear the actual song, I used to try. How would it sound if James actually sung this song? Because I could hear the power of his vocals. It would be an amazing thing. MJ's version is great. It's classic. But if Ingram, if I saw him singing it live, but it wasn't. I think it was like maybe 10 years ago on YouTube. There's a video. Right. and there's also a demo of him, actually, a snippet of a
Right.
demo of him. Yeah, I think you may have heard. But yeah, and then Yamo B there, obviously. So you know, so much skill, so much talent. You know, so what was it like being with him? Obviously, you would have influenced each other, right? I mean, you grew
Oh
up
yeah,
together.
but you know what, because that's what we did. You know, we were proud of each other. It's like James got proud of me when, you know, Switch happened, and then, like I said, when he played me just once, I'm like, you're over. And but because a lot of people don't read credits, like I said, we did so much together. I mean, I did a few shows with James, but since we had separate careers, you know, I couldn't do um a lot of things with him because I was doing some. But there was a couple of times where he did some shows and he said, "Hey man, can you sing, you know, background with me?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I know you're my brother, but how much you gonna pay me?" You know what I mean? And so, but like you know, first time we happened, we did the Philippines together, and so you know, I did because he had a lot of duets with a lot of females, but you know, had the Yamo be there with Mike, and so I did that with him live a couple of times. But yeah, we got to do you know, I would matter of fact, after James did his first album, we were doing so many sessions and I was contracting, I was calling him. It was me, him, and Phil Perry a lot. Like I said, you know, we're singing on a bunch of records. And one day James called me, he said, "Man, Philip, you know I love working with you." He said, "Man, I gotta get ready to do my second album." I said, "James, cool." I said, "You're the only singer in town, man. Come on." So I'm like, I said, "That's fine." But that's what I mean, you know, if he was available, you know, "Hey man, you cool?" Or he'd call me up, or you know, but we grew up and it's like we all knew we wanted to do this and now we're living our dream, but we were definitely respectful of each other's talent. So
Yeah.
matter of fact, my father one time, he was like, he said, "I think it's so nice that you and that you and Philip get to do a lot together." He said, you know, especially being brothers. And James said, "Daddy, I don't call Philip because he my brother. He don't call me because," he said, "I call him because he can sing his butt off." He was telling my father that. It's like, because you know, you can have a relative, you ain't gonna just have them if they can't sing. You know what I mean? So no, it was nice that we got to do quite a bit together. Matter of
Mm.
fact, um, there's if you look up what's the name of Arrow Shirts, ARROW. It's we did Your Love Lifted Me High. That won a Clio Award. Clio Award is would be for commercials. It would be like equivalent to a Grammy for music. But it's me and James singing, and you can tell as soon as you hear it, I'm singing the lead. Your love keeps lifting up. And the way they did it, they shot, they had it was me, James, I think it was Orin Waters and Jim Gilstrap. And then but they also had some other LA singers, and they were all white. They did it on purpose. So the first part, they show all these guys in white shirts singing ooh, like real, almost like a Morbid Tabernacle choir type thing. And then you'll hear, "So lift me up." And when you look over, his shirt changes into colors. "It's my desire." Then that shirt, and just like then everybody did all these shirts and changes in the colors, and it was advertising Arrow shirts and singing "Your Love Keeps Lifting." And then you hear me and James doing all this stuff. I'm singing it, James, all that stuff. You know what I mean? It won a Clio Award. So you look it up on YouTube, Arrow Shirts, Your Love Lifted Me Higher. But I'm just saying, we did a bunch of stuff together, commercials, movies, you know, records, and did some live stuff together, but had separate careers. So it was really nice, seriously. So it was sad because the last thing we did, Quincy did a show out here at the Hollywood Bowl. It was 2011. It was 60 years of Quincy Jones. And it was like a 3.5 hour show, literally with a intermission in between. But about 3 years after that, I started noticing James was having some memory loss. I'm like, and I was asking my sister, and I'm like, yeah, he wasn't doing well. And from then on, he just started going downhill. So it was sad because I'm 66. He died at 66. So I was 60 at the time. But yeah, And so now I've lost three of my brothers, and it's just me and my two sisters. But I'm the youngest, like I said. So
Mm. It's nice to see your perspective on how close you and James remained, even though you had your own careers to manage and your own schedules, but you always made time for each other and supported each other
oh yeah,
throughout. Mm.
definitely, because family first. You know what I mean? Remember I said you can't. We didn't let this stuff define us. That was the thing. I've seen families torn apart. You know, really sad. But again, it has to do a lot with their upbringing. You know what I mean? We can't fault the way they were raised. You know what I mean? It's just, um, yeah. I've seen a lot. I've worked with a lot of people, seen a lot of tragedies, which is sad, and a lot of them they're gone because of that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Mm. Yeah, that's very very nice to see that. So can you describe to me just how you and James, your vocal styles are sort of distinct. It's both soul R&B, whereas James has he's got a lot of power. So do you, but
mhm.
you're like velvety smooth. Like just how did you guys develop your styles? Growing up together, and I hear a lot of Marvin Gaye in there.
It's funny you say that. James listened to a. We all listened, Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Marvin. James definitely leaned more towards Marvin. I leaned more towards Donny and Stevie. Matter of fact, so much when um, I was 18 and I loved I knew every lick that Stevie and Donny did on every single record. That's how I learned. And I loved the one thing I loved about Stevie because I had a higher register than James. So matter of fact, we would be doing stuff. He said, "Man, are you your natural or your false?" And I learned that listening to Stevie because he would go from his natural to his falsetto and the power. I was like, I said, I want to do that. And so I kept practicing, because when you get about 16, your voice changes and you got that little, you go do, re, mi, fa, So I didn't want that. So you know what I mean? So I was into Stevie so much when we got signed to Motown, because think about it, when you're doing top 40, who are you? You don't have an identity yet. I'm singing on the record, Jermaine was producing. He stopped the tape and gave me these four words that changed my life. He said, Philip, Stevie got his. Like, in other words, he didn't say it, but by saying that, it says, you have to find Philip Ingram and changed my life. So I said, I got to find Philip Ingram. I remember going back home with Greg, me and him riding back home after the session. I said, who is Philip Ingram? I've been doing top 40 all my life. So then I started trying different things until, now people know my voice, but I'm saying, but back then, those four words made me find me. So same thing with James. James said, like you said, you can hear some Marvin in him. You know what I mean? But James said, I need a trademark that whenever I sing a record, they know. So you know, everybody knew that I was James Ingram. So he went that route. He said, I'm gonna get a trademark that they gonna know it's me. So we both had to find ourselves, and we did. And so now, it's like, man, that's you singing on, yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. So
It's like your trademark. You just knew, you could hear it. Oh, that's my brother. That's my brother singing.
right, right. So but we both had to learn that because we both grew up, imitating others. You know what I mean? And everybody does. But you remember like when American Idol first came out, Simon Cowell would say, "You just sound like a karaoke version of a, such and such." You know what I mean? Because and I know he said it, but what he said made a lot of sense. You got to find you. I tell a lot of young singers coming up, it's okay to have someone that um, that you like, but in the interim, you still got to find who you are. Because if not, you won't. You definitely won't make it through. You sound just like, yeah, you won't make it through.
I totally understand. I mean, and you got so many of these court cases these days. I mean, I say
Yeah.
it so many times, it's ridiculous. So, uh, but at the same time, it's like, well, what's happened to creativity? Because I mean, I could look
Yeah.
at Michael Jackson and see James Brown like as clear as day, but no one's
Of
going to
course.
copyright that. James Brown is proud of, like, and he probably did James Brown's moves better than James Brown. But what I'm saying is, like, no, and James Brown is so obviously groundbreaking himself. But like nowadays, if anyone does anything that's remotely the same, I'm going to sue you.
Exactly.
Everyone's scared
But
to make music.
but you remember Prince, same thing. When Prince would do when he would do that, flip his guitar back, he'd take the mic and pull the cord up. That was James. So they both loved James Brown, but still found their own way through it. Everybody has someone that you admire, but you can't keep taking their stuff. So like I said, so when I'm 18 years old, I'm signed now to Motown Records. I'm like, and when Jermaine said, Philip, Stevie got his, like, ooh, okay, I got to find Philip, and I did. Obviously.
That's very inspirational. For sure. If you're a musician, find your sound. Don't just be a copycat, because
Yeah,
we could just turn on Spotify and listen to that anyway. So,
exactly, exactly. You're absolutely right.
mm. So what about so if we can talk about Switch? So obviously some of the band members began with White Heat, and then it became. I think you came in on the Paul Mall days. Paul Mall.
No, that's
Is
no.
that
Let
true?
me explain it.
Yeah.
No, the way this happened, White Heat, so the members of Switch that were part of White Heat, when White Heat did their record on RCA, it was Greg Williams, Bobby DeBarge, and Jody Sims. And they had another bass player. And actually, they were called the TNT Flashers. They were playing around there from Ohio and Michigan. And they went to California. Barry White heard them, signed them, changed the name to White Heat. That's how that came about. Did an album on RCA. It made some noise, but didn't have a really big impact. So I met them when I was 16 years old. They just so happened to be living in Akron, Ohio. But Barry White kept the bass player, took him from White Heat, and that's when Tommy DeBarge, um, Bobby's brother, joined White Heat. So I met them because we started doing some shows with them. They had a band house. We started hanging out. And so they got to know me. I got to know them. I got to know Tommy and Bobby. And then Bobby was having some drug issues. And then that's when a guy named Arnie Haynes became part of White Heat, replacing Bobby. So then Greg, I graduated high school in 1976, and it was October 76. I was working with another band, and Greg approached me about putting this band together, which became Switch. And so we went down to, it was me, Arnie Haynes, everybody but Bobby, basically, and a guy named Melvin Clark. He was a guitar player. We went and did this 8-song demo down in Columbus, Ohio. And then that's the tape that they went out to Motown that we got to deal with. The guy that put up the money, his name was Vern Lichters. And he was a part of that demo that we did, became part of Paul Mall Groove, right? It was a way for him to get back the money that, he had put up for us to go in the studio. That's all that was. And so when Motown was interested, it was interesting for some reason. To this day, I have no idea why. Arnie Haynes decided not to come, and we had a deal on the table. So what Motown heard was everybody in Switch, except for Bobby DeBarge. They heard Arnie had a nice, falsetto, and myself as the main lead singers, and that's where the interest came from. So then Greg and Jody Sims was already out in California, and then we get a call from Greg. He says, Arnie's decided not to come. We're like, what? And we like, 'cause, we're still in Ohio. We're like, we got this deal on the table. Are you kidding me? So then he said, what do you guys think about Bobby? and of course the talent, phenomenal talent, but we were just concerned about the drug issue. And so, but he said he's clean. We were like, oh yeah, then yeah. So we came to California, and then Bobby met us. But like I said, we already knew him, and he had just wrote a song called "I Want to Be with You," which ended up being the first song on our first album. And we had to get prepared. And Jermaine was hanging out with us every day. We Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He said, "You guys got the deal." We're like, "Are you kidding me?" And nobody had seen us but him. But remember, at the time, he was married to Hazel Gordy, so he was Berry Gordy's son-in-law. So he said, "But you guys still got a showcase because nobody's seen you but me." So we put this showcase together of 8 songs, and it was Berry Gordy was there, Jermaine, Smokey Robinson. It was Suzanne DePass. I mean, his big wigs, Tony Jones, Suzanne Costa. It was like, oh, and some people said, "Did you get nervous?" We're like, "We just did what we did." But here's what was interesting. So I'd be on the piano, well, Bob would be out front. Greg and Eddie. Greg would be on the trumpet. Eddie would be on the trombone, and then I'd go out front. Then me and Bobby would go out and sing a duet, and Greg then would get on the keyboards. Then there was a song where Jody came out, and Bobby got on the drums, and we just did what we did. And when we got done, Suzanne DePass, he says, "I've never seen so much switching in my life," and that's how our name came about, because we could all play multiple instruments. We could all sing lead and background. It was so unique. And again, like I said, people thought we were a singing group because of our harmonies. So Barry was like, he said, "The only thing that can mess you guys up is you." And but we were a little concerned because, Bobby's volatility. First 2 albums, he was definitely like a team player, but then, sad to say, he started thinking that he was the reason that for Switch's success, that type of thing. When our initial deal had someone else, they were interested in the whole band. But that's how that happened. So, and so that's why on the third album, first 2 albums got pictures, nice logo. Third album, Reaching for Tomorrow, had no images of us. The logo was different. I said Motown is sending us a message, because the group was divided. And it's sad because some of the, Power to Dance and not Power to Dance, My Friend in the Sky, one of my favorite Switch records. I mean, it was like, just from the momentum of our first 2 albums, came on the charts and things jumped 80 something spots just from the momentum. And so, but Motown didn't get behind it. And we had to go back to the studio, and then we did our fourth album, and we had another R&B hit with Love Over and Over Again. So, but I think that little piece where we were disunited as a group, that's when that, again, see, if you allow this to define you, that was that third album. And I think that's when we lost our momentum. But our first 2 albums, then the third one, we picked back up some momentum. But some people only think we had 3 albums, but we had 5. But that was why Switch had some struggles. And then they signed DeBarge. And at the time, they shelved DeBarge because Elle and Bobby sounded so much alike. So their first album, the "What's Your Name? Tell Me, Pretty Thing." I love that song. Elle wrote that, but it wasn't a big hit because they sound too close to Switch. When they did All This Love, we were leaving Motown. People thought that was Switch. You know what I mean? So there was this confusion with Switch and DeBarge. And then even today, because he'll do "There'll Never Be" and "I Call Your Name" in his show. And so people think that was a DeBarge record, but no, that's a Switch record. You know what I mean? We don't do "I Like It" in our show, but if he did it as a tribute to his brother, that would be different. But yeah, and we've done shows with Elle, so but I'm saying that's kind of how that whole thing morphed. And Elle is the only one that's kind of remained out there of the whole family. So the family just had a lot of struggles. I love them. One of the most talented people I've ever worked with. I loved when we worked together because the singing it was like a natural blend. When you can sing around somebody, you ain't got to think. You're just like, "Hey man, can you step back?" It's just like, it just worked. So that part was phenomenal. I just felt bad for the struggles they had that, that caused them, well, like, our situation with Switch, it caused that to happen. But like I said, I was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you obviously were set for the rest of for your until now, even with your career. But then Bobby joined DeBarge eventually, right?
Yeah, because they were gonna do the whole just DeBarge as a family. And but it was kind of sad, when Bobby did his solo record. I didn't know until I was watching the take of Unsung because we all recorded differently, and I knew I'd sang some backgrounds with Bobby, and I knew Tommy had played bass on his record. I didn't know that Greg had helped out with some production. So when I'm watching, I looked at Greg. I said, "Wait a minute, you, me, Tommy, and that's four members of Switch on his solo record." I was like, it never dawned on me. I'm like, wow. So, well, Bobby was a phenomenal talent. I mean, it's just his voice, everything. You know, and L is a phenomenal talent. I mean, his keyboards, his singing, everything. And he's had some longevity, but he's had some struggles and stuff as well. I've seen some background on some of the stuff that he's done on his solo record. Thinking background on Who's Johnny, but and we've done some other stuff together as well. But like I said, love working with them, the talent wise, because when you can just sing with people that you ain't got to think, instead of like, no, 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 can you pull back on that note? Instead of just you just going and sing. That's why I was with me, James, and Phil Perry, and others. I sang with Dorian Holly, Daryl Finney, Jim Ghost Chat. We just go in and sing. Some days, let's say I might be got a little cold. Hey man, you mind taking the top? Because I'm gonna take the bottom, and it's like done. So that's what I mean. That's the type of people I had the pleasure of working with. And Switch was the same way. So that's why when you asked that story about us doing lead and backgrounds, that's why we could do anything, anywhere, anytime. You know what I mean? So, like again, finger on the trigger, loves and control. Everybody thought that was ladies. That's me, James, and Phil Perry. You see what I'm saying? So
I never would have known. Yeah. Wow. And yeah, well,
I'm
that's
surprised because you're a person that reads credits, so I'm actually surprised you didn't know that.
well, I didn't know anything about James Ingram's like family. Like I see other names, like you see Latoya Jackson, like doing
Right,
PYT and
right.
stuff. Yeah, I should have noticed. I should have noticed. But
No problem.
funny thing, Switch from what in Australia, I don't think there was much. It wasn't really on. We only listened to the main. I mean, not that you guys weren't main. I mean, just obviously, Cool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, all these dudes. Where you
Right.
guys were just much a part of that
Hmm.
that whole the Switch. So I mean, you all came up together basically. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Mm,
But like I said, they are our biggest hits was They'll Never Be, I'll Call Your Name, I Want to Be Closer, Love Old Again. Those are in Best Beat in Town. We had
mm,
five big hits, but it's funny when we do our shows, we get requests for a lot of other songs because the true Switch fans, they know every record.
mm,
So,
mm.
so there's other things that we do in our show that, and there's songs that we don't do that people still ask for. Because a lot of radio stations would play other songs that weren't singles. I mean, back then that was common. So, like we had a song that Jermaine wrote called "Calling on Our Girls," and we do that in our show. Everybody knows that song, but maybe it wasn't a worldwide known song, but in the United States,
Mm.
everybody knows that song because every
Yeah,
time
no,
we do it, they scream.
yeah, I agree because I mean, there's I've got some friends. They're obviously from the US, and but we start talking about music, and they tell me about local bands and all this. I got no idea, but over there they're big time. So which
Of
is
course, exactly.
they can
Yeah,
tour like for the rest of their career, and but once you find out, I mean, once you learn about Switch, that's the thing. Like you guys were it with all the greats. I mean, it's just a reality. So,
right,
and it
exactly.
needs to be recognized more. I think outside of the US. I think. So I don't know if you'd agree,
Well,
but
here's what's interesting. I've worked all around the world with Sheena Easton, I've worked with Zipflo. I've worked with a Japanese artist named Anli. And you know, everywhere I went, and this Switch has never played outside of the US ever. But every time I go outside of the US, I've signed Switch albums and I've signed Deco albums. Me and Zane did on Quest Records. I mean, or their CDs. I'm like, I'm in Japan sitting up here. I'm like, they got 3 of my CDs. You ever heard of Ed Mota? He's a Brazilian artist. Well, I'm singing on this new record, and the girl that called me named Paulette Wilson. Her and I used to do Paulette McWilson. We did a bunch of stuff together. She lived in New York, but now she's back in LA. So she calls me for this, and she said Ed is like a huge Switch fan. So he was in Brazil when we did our session. He was, you know, like on FaceTime or on Zoom, and so he got to see us while we were doing. And he had all of our albums. He's in Brazil, and I'm like, oh man. So everywhere I've gone, I've signed Switch albums all around the world. I'm like, this is nuts that we've never performed around the world, but people know our music.
I think the internet definitely has opened a lot more access to music in general. I mean, and to your band, your back catalog. Absolutely, has to have. Yeah, it's just such easy access.
You know that that Korean band, those guys that sold, no, was it BK?
Yes.
Was it, what is it? Yeah, BTS. Yeah, they somebody a young friend of mine, she's 16 years old. She said, Philip, did you guys do this record? I'm like, what do you know about Love Over and Over Again? There's a video of him driving, and he's singing, you got to like me, love my life. And he's yelling, oh, you can move me. And I'm like, wow. And then he goes, why don't you love me? Singing my part. I'm like, so our influence, and there was somebody sent me a guy from France singing You Pulled a Switch, which is one of the ones I did on our first album. So people will send me clips and stuff like that. So that tells me we were known around the world, but wow, we didn't. But Switch has never played. I've been all around the world with other people, but never with Switch. But yeah.
That's phenomenal. I mean, that must be a
Yeah.
great feeling, hey, just to know that you're connecting with
Oh, yeah.
music. And
Definitely.
on a large scale. With Switch in particular.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So Motown,
I told you, Ed, it's a lot. It's a lot. You're gonna be here 4 hours later.
I'll try to cut it down, but all this stuff is just too good. I'm gonna keep it all.
That's funny. Yeah, every time I do an interview, they're like, because they only know so much, but it's you know, it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's been a blessing.
I want to delve into everything because this is what I grew up listening to. I mean, you're as much a part of it. I mean, even though not through Switch as much, but yeah, you're amongst it with the Toto guys, with James and Quincy and all that. So yeah.
Well, when I send you the credit list, you're gonna be like, oh man, are you kidding me? So
so Motown, obviously we know Jermaine Jackson kind of discovered you guys. You sent a tape to him, right? You gave him a tape, and then he listened to it. He said, like, I got to get you guys in.
No, the way it happened, they were going back to White Heat. There was an attorney by the name of Curtis Shaw that they had worked with. He had an office in the Motown building, and what happened? They only had one tape left. They went to a couple of record companies, you know, didn't even get through the front door, that type of thing. It's like, oh yeah, you can leave your tape, you know. And so they had one tape left. They went up in the Motown building because that's where Curtis Shaw was. And he was an attorney that had helped them with their deal with Barry White. So they had a meeting with him. When they were leaving, Jermaine Jackson and Hazel walked in on the elevator. And of course, they knew who he was, you know, and they're like, And so he gets off at the fifth floor, and they go down. And they said, "Oh man, we should have gave him a tape." So they go back up. Fifth floor, we found out was parking, and he just so happens he was sitting in his Rolls Royce. He had a cassette player, and at the time Jermaine was living in Thousand Oaks, so about 40 minutes. So he was looking for something to play, and Hazel was pregnant with Jermaine Jr. and he was looking for something to play. He saw him in the elevator. He saw him running up to the car. He was nice enough. He rolled down the window. He's like, "May I help you?" And they said, "Yeah, we'd just like you to listen to your tape. If we don't want to bother you." He said, "No." He said, "No, I'll check it out." He listened to it on the way home. And so the next day, he was in the hospital. She was having the baby. He called him. He said, "What's happening with this? I mean, I love it." And he said, "We don't have a deal." He said, "Are you kidding me?" He had he had Greg and Jody meet him at the hospital, and they had a business meeting about being signed to Motown. So it wasn't like, but they just ran into him on an elevator. Nice. He was nice enough to listen to the tape, listen to the whole thing, and said, "Yeah, man, you guys, yeah." And so that's how that was January of '77. In March of '77, like I said, we came out. The deal was finalized in May of '77. So,
And then you obviously met Berry Gordy after that, right? So I mean,
oh yeah.
which is amazing. And then you had to do the showcase for him. But how much? Because you guys wrote your own music. So how much of an influence did Berry have? Because I know he would have had his own array of writers for Motown and all that. So how did that pan out for you guys?
We had it was a mixture. So like on our first album, a guy named Greg Wright, he wrote Fever and You Pulled a Switch. And then It's So Real was written by Michael and Brenda Sutton. You mean Jermaine did I Want to Be Closer, and we wrote the rest. And then on our second album, um, me and Bobby and a lady named Elaine Brown, who worked for Motown, we wrote You're the One for Me together. But everything else pretty much, Calling on Our Girls was written by Jermaine. But yeah, oh, that's what it was. The song We Like to Party on our first album. Um, Barry and Jeffrey Bowen, even though Greg wrote it, but um, they structured it differently. I mean, and I forgot it's called like the Bewley Brothers production, but that was Berry Gordy and Jeffrey Bowen, and and that was another one that got a lot of radio play that we do in our show as well. Um, so yeah, he was definitely. Matter of fact, back then, let me tell you, our meetings was at Berry Gordy's home. That's how much he was into us. Where when we did our first TV appearance, he he was coaching us, and like I said, team player, team player. Everybody was doing great. First album did what, and he was gonna. That's he was. What's the word I'm looking for? Promoting us the way he promoted the Jacksons. You know how the Jacksons, you knew every single individual. You knew Tito. You know what I mean. So in a lot of bands, you don't know every single member. But in Switch, even the way they did, the album covers and everything. Matter of fact, when we did our first album, we had a photo shoot, same music, and Barry said, "No, this ain't good enough." And so they're great with artist development. He had us go shopping with a stylist. It sent us to different hairdressers. We reshot exact same music, totally different cover, right? And that's the album that went platinum. And that's how much Barry was into it. So he was coaching us. It's like on our first TV show, the things that we should do and shouldn't do. And then second album, same thing. Now on our third album, this is where it all fell apart. But see, Motown is also known for kind of pulling, like one person out of the group, kind of like, the Supremes. Then it was Diana Ross and the Supremes. Then it was Diana Ross, the Miracles, then it was Smokey Robinson. You know what I mean? So um, he was pushing Bobby quite a bit. Okay. But then when we were up in his house, we had the song on our third album. It's called Power to Dance. He said, "This can be a number one record. The energy is great. The melody is phenomenal. The production He said, but the lyrics aren't as strong as the music. Now, anybody in their right mind would just say, okay, let's redo the lyrics and go in and cut it, right? We're at Berry Gordy's home. He's telling us what's going to make us get us the number one record. Well, Bobby DeBarge wrote it, and at that time, like I said, he was, it was all about him. He said, I think the lyrics are fine. And we were at Berry Gordy's home. So that was the beginning of the end. I remember I was 20 years old and I put my head down. I said, man, has he lost his mind? So, and that was the album. Let me see if I can show you this. So, let's see. It's hard for me to see. Let me see.
Yeah. That's the first album.
So that's the first album. That's the second album. Now, so you notice how they got pictures and stuff, right?
Mm.
So this is the third album. And let me see if you can see that.
Yeah.
So see how they changed it? No picture, the logo changed. And then we went back on our fourth album. See, now it's back to our pictures and logo. So this album was where he said, I think the lyrics are fine. And so that was, like I said, the beginning of the end. That was yeah. So,
Well, why would you guys have achieved success through Berry, and the genius of Berry Gordy is there. You're in his house.
I know.
Why did you guys go along with it? Why didn't you have like a sort of? I know. Well, you said that Bobby wrote it, so maybe that's why. But.
Of course.
Yeah.
But remember, like we said, even when he was asked to be part of the group, talent was not a thing. It was just the volatility. And so, but like first two albums, he was definitely still a team member. But they'll never be. Had his voice, and me and him did I Want to Be Closer. Those are our two hits. Best Beat in Town, which we were hoping it was going to be Fallen, because Jermaine loved Fallen. That was me and Greg sang that one. And then Then I Call Your Name came out, which was a mega hit. And I mean, that song and They'll Never Be has been, They'll Never Be has been redone. I Call Your Name's been redone. Rappers have used, samples and stuff of it. So that's also kept us out there. But that third album, My Friend in the Sky, to me was just like, and that was me and Bobby saying that. And it was like, it was even today, it's the musicality, the vocals, everything. And he had a song called Don't Take My Love Away. It was going to be the first single that Bobby sang. But Power to Dance, if those lyrics had been changed. But again, yeah, that's what we wanted. We would have followed him. But, again, Berry also has to, he created that too. You know what I mean? So, and that's when it just, and after that, we were never back at Berry's house again. So.
Missed opportunity. I mean, Power to Dance, it's got a great groove to it, and like the riffs in it are they're catchy, but yeah, I think the lyrics may not have the impact. Would you agree, or yourself?
Oh, I definitely agree.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was like, yeah, because but I just want to tell you, yeah, it's a great energy.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, we used to open our show with that because the people knew the song, and it's for a show opener. When we were touring, it was like everybody knew the song because they were still into Switch, and they were like, as soon as they were all up on their feet screaming, even though it didn't have. But yeah, that could have been a number one record. That's what Berry said. But anyway, that's I even talked about that on Unsung. When we did Unsung, I said, he didn't want to change the lyrics. So at that point, like you said, why didn't we? Well, yeah, we were a band, but were we really at that point anymore? Or were we individuals? You see what I mean? And that's why when after Motown let us go, we had a band meeting and they wanted to get Bobby and Tommy back. That's when I decided to leave. I said, I believed in Philip. I'm like, I loved him, but I said, the reason we're in the predicament we're in is, it's because of that situation back, on our third album. So I said, if y'all want to do it, it's fine, but I can't. I love him. Like I said, I still work with him on a solo record, but I couldn't do it. And I believed in me, and and it was at that same time when James asked me about doing the that Dude tour. I was like, yeah. So, and singing background, but like I said, I've done a bunch of background with, Switch and on a few records at that point. Not as much as I've done now, but so
Yeah, I mean that sort of attitude, if you want to say, that Bobby sort of developed, kind of can breed some negativity, and then like your whole drive to want to make music is affected as a result.
right, exactly,
Mm,
exactly.
mm.
Yeah, so I was fine, but that's why I said I didn't look back. I just kept, um, and then and the way I started doing commercials, Ed Eckstein, was Billy Eckstein's son. He was Quincy's right hand man, and we had gotten close. He worked at Qwest Records, and so Deco, we were doing our album, and he loved my voice. And there was a guy named Rick Knowles that was a buddy of him, and he recommended me for a commercial, and I'd never done a commercial at that time, and it was Pacific Bell. It was out here for California, phone company, and I had to audition. And at first I was like, huh, interesting, because there was another person that they had to audition. He was like, I won't say his name, but he was like, because he had some hit records. He's like, man, I'm not gonna audition. They could just listen to my record. And in my mind, I'm like, this must be a different industry because I've never done a commercial. And I'm like, I've been on hit records, but they're asking for an audition. I said, oh well. But see, I had the humility to go, and all it was, there's so much left to say, don't drift away. That was it. And I did this whole slew of Pacific Bell commercials because I went and auditioned. Well, from that, this person recommended me to, to this, and then I started meeting all the, so I was like in this whole different world of session singers singing on commercials. And then I started doing movies, all because I made the choice to audition. And it was a recommendation from Ed Eckstein. You see what I mean? The records continue, but I went into a whole new world now with movies and commercials. So that was, I've shared that story. In fact, I won't say who the band was, but me and one of the buddies had lunch the other day, and I said, "You remember?" Because he used to be in their band. I said, "I never shared the story with you, but I told him about that. He was supposed to audition. He's like, I ain't auditioned," and sent his record. I said, "I don't even know if they listened to it," but see, that's what I mean about allowing. Look how stupid that was. And so that started, that's when I started learning about residuals from commercials and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, it just shows that just one's attitude can really just change. I mean, but either having a negative effect or open up so many more opportunities like you did. There's a whole other industry that you became involved with, and
it did know existed. Let me switch this over. Go ahead. I'm gonna switch this over. Oops. There you go. Okay. Cool.
yes, and that's all positive. That's the results are positive. So
Exactly.
all attitude at the
Exactly.
end of the day, in a lot of ways. Mm. So, what about? Can you tell me a bit about Michael McGlory? He was your the Switch guitarist, or was he just always a session guitarist?
Well, no. Michael had an amazing career. He wrote a lot of songs with Jermaine. He was Jermaine's guitar player at the time. Well, what happened? After years, he's playing on They'll Never Be. Excuse me, They'll Never Be. So basically, when you first hear our first record, that's Michael McGlory. He's playing on Best Beating Town. He's playing on Want to Be Closer. I mean, all our hits. So, and he was playing. He did a lot of work also. My brother James did a lot of work with Leon Haywood before he was famous. Bad Mama Jamma and them. That's them singing background. So that guitar on Bad Mama Jamma, that's Michael McGlory. So he was a session player. And so when we got back together, we talked to Mike, and so he was like, yeah. So he's been with us since we've gotten back together to do shows and stuff. And that's what I mean. It's like having four originals because we sound exactly the same. You got the same singers without Bobby, but you know everybody know he's dead. Keely Dixon has a nice falsetto, very DeBarge-ish, and so they you know they like. And what's really strange, we still do all of our songs in the same key we did when we were teenagers. We have not lowered any keys. I know. We have a show next weekend in Detroit. I know. Look at
How
your
is
face.
that possible? Because I mean, obviously, I mean, if you look at John Bon Jovi, for example, you know how much he's lowered his keys these days. Because
I know.
I mean, yeah, he changes.
But you know what? When I was talking to kids the other day. I said, you know, I never smoked, I never drank, I never did alcohol, even before I was a witness. Never. So I think that's what helped me. You know what I mean? I did. So
Yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, I interviewed a couple of weeks ago a vocalist. He's he's like a rock metal vocalist, but he's the same deal. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't talk after the gigs because he wants to save his voice for the next night. Like, even though it may not seem like the right thing to do, he said, I want to be available and not lose my instrument.
right, exactly. Yeah, but I think that's what's helped me over the years. But yeah, now I still have all of my range. I can hit all my notes. I mean, they be teasing me like, "Dang man, you still sound like a teenager." I'm like, "Good," and I think that's what's helped me all these years. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm.
it's like, well, you know, you've heard stuff like you asked me to sing something, and I'm like, well, can't do that. But again, you know, that we did that back in 2018. I mean, that was just 6 years ago.
Mm,
So
mm, mm. Yeah.
yeah, so far I can sing everything I've ever sung in my life, in the same key.
Mm.
So that's again another blessing.
Yes, for sure. So you made some changes in your life, maybe what in the 80s or something. So your faith is obviously had an effect on how you of your lifestyle, obviously, which has resulted in your protecting your voice, I guess, in many ways. I mean, you tell us a bit about that. About what were the changes and how has it benefited you?
Well, mainly as you know, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I've been actually was introduced informally back in 1981. It was interesting. Me and Zane Giles, we were writing songs together, and I didn't know that I was informally witnessing to him. Because when I realized they had the truth, I said I'm going to study, and so told me to set up a study for him. I said, really? And so we actually ended up getting baptized together. And the main thing for me is just had to be careful on the the type of lyrics and stuff that I would sing on different movies. I've worked on a lot of films, but like one of the just as an example, I'm in my best friend's wedding, but the lady Bonnie Greenberg, she was a music supervisor, and so she recommended me for a lot of stuff. That's actually how I got in that film. Again, we were talking about making connections with people. But one day she called me, and Tim Allen was doing the movie The Santa Claus. You know what I mean? And she said, Philip, would you be able to do that? I said, no, Bonnie, I love you, but I won't be able to do that. But I do thank you for thinking about me. And I recommended Howard Hewitt. And so he ended up getting it. So it's, stuff like that over the years. But also, you know, um, when you learn stuff from the scriptures and you have the faith, you know that your provisions come from Jehovah. And so that's really what changed my life because I was telling somebody in the music industry, especially if you hustle, so you depend on yourself a lot. For the next session, you're running and you're making connections and all that stuff, and it's amazing. I'll just share one scripture with you. With Malachi 3:10 became the scripture to help me to balance. It's where only time in the scripture where he says, "Test me out in this respect, and see whether I'll not to open you the floodgates of heaven till there's nothing lacking." So, as an example, I would get a call from. I come home. I get a call from Burt Bacharach, I'm like, wow, Burt Bacharach. I'm like, on my answer machine. Call. I'm like, because I was doing a bunch of records and people read credits and stuff. And so the first time he called, I said, man, it's an honor. I love your work and everything. And then he was like, um, there was I think he was doing Dionne Warwick and wanted me to do some backgrounds. I said, I'd love to. And at the time, I had a Monday night book study or Bible study, called congregation book study back then. But anyway, so I said, when? It was Monday, the same time, Monday at 7:30. And so Malachi 3:10 came to my head. Never met him. I said, you know what? I already got another appointment. I love your work. Hopefully we can work together in the future. And I was like, I said, but I was testing him out, like he said. And that was one of the first times I saw it. About a month later, his manager called me back and said, I think he was doing Gladys Knight. He said, Philip, Bert wants to know what night works best for you, Monday night or Tuesday night. I said, Tuesday be fine. I ended up working with Bert for almost a decade. And I've shared that story over the years with different ones. And then there's others, and I did the same thing. But Malachi 3:10 became my, it's the one that helped me to balance, the truth with, and, you might not understand this, others may not, but I've been pioneering I'm in my 41st year and, been serving as an elder for years and, do a lot of stuff. But yeah, that was a transition, mainly watching the type of stuff I sang on and still look at the career over the years. It's been amazing.
Mm.
So I've been able to balance it.
Yeah, that's great. Very encouraging. First of all, I just want to say, did he possibly see you on my best friend's wedding?
Did who?
Did Burt Bacharach potentially see you?
Oh no, I did. I did that later. What happened? It was I was doing. I was working with David Foster and stuff. I mean, when you got. Remember I told you I was working with Walter Afanasios, Peter Wolf, and when you see these hit records, you're going to look and see, man, who's singing the background? You know what I mean? And that's how that happens. And because when you're having a bunch of hits, you usually use your same musicians and singers because that becomes part of your sound as a producer. And so that's why I was on a lot of records. But so yeah. So and and plus by the time James was famous and people say, oh man, like he'd be working with somebody and somebody like I told you. I met Sheena Easton because of Michael McDonald. He was like, he said, oh, you ever heard Philip? She's like, no. And I worked with her for 17 years. So it's all that, they know stuff. And like I told you, Toto's the ones that recommended me to Kim Carnes. And I'm singing on One Divided Hearts. I did that album with her. I mean, it's like, so, yeah.
And that's as a result of you being balanced in your approach to life, right? And as you said,
exactly.
Those principles that there's laid in the scriptures that you've drawn from, has resulted in so much positivity for you. So, and we could all sort of apply that.
And let me just back up though. I had that from my parents even before, because I'll say this: we were raised on Bible principles without accurate knowledge. So we were always taught to treat people the way we wanted to be treated, which is Matthew 7:12. So we did that regardless of race, color, size, didn't matter. They were part of the human race. So we knew that growing up. So we always treated people. And that's why when Switch started hitting, I never turned a fan down because they were the reasons that we were successful. But, when I would get tired, I'm like, hey, this is my last picture. I need to get some sleep because we got a show tomorrow. You know what I mean? I was reasonable. But I took the time with them. So I'm like, no, get away. I never did that. Never did that. So if that makes sense. But yeah, so parents first and then understanding the truth, then even more so.
So just talking about Yama Be There. So, I mean, those lyrics are very, obviously, I mean, it's a spiritual sort of thing, topic, right? So James wrote those lyrics?
James and Michael McDonald wrote it, but you had to know James. I loved him. He always had these spiritual discussions, but they were not necessarily from the Bible. You know what I mean? And so originally that record was going to be called. It's like, yeah, I'ma be there. You know what I mean? Like Ed. Hey man, I got you, man. I'm gonna be there. But the first lyric is Heavenly Father watching us fall. Right? So James decided to change it to Yah, which stands for Yahweh, Yamo, which is like a slang for Yamo be there. See what I'm saying? Yamo be there. They almost sound identical. Yamo be there. Yamo be there. You see what I'm saying? And so that's how that came about. That first lyric in that song. So yeah. And so Yamo be there. It's a
I love
slang for yeah, I'm gonna be there, but yeah.
it's an uplifting song. I mean, it is. I mean,
Oh, it is. It is. Matter of fact, that was they had done a few other songs. Um, but Quincy said, no, no, no. And when they did this one, he said, that's the one. So yeah,
I,
Quincy's the one that put them together.
I
Matter of
consider.
fact, if you look on the YouTube, uh remember that old TV show, what was it called? Oh man, Solid Gold. Solid Gold years ago. If you look on YouTube, look up James and Michael McDonald. Y'all will be there on Solid Gold. I'm playing bass and singing background, and Zane is playing guitar. Boom, ding, do, 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 do. I'm with pantomime, but
That's what they did back in the day, right? No
yeah,
guitar lead.
right. Well, because they're doing the keyboards, but those shows you would pantomime. But yeah, but I'm back there playing bass with James, and that's the same. We did a lot of stuff together. And by that time, I was already with Qwest Records. I was no longer with Switch, even though we've gotten back together. Like I said, we've been performing now since 2000, 2003, something like that. About 20 years.
Yeah, wow.
You know, all, yeah, we still do shows all over the place.
That's great.
So, and sometimes I can't because I might have some other obligations, and then they have to get a sub. But they understand. But yeah, next weekend, next 2 weekends. But next weekend I'll be in Detroit, Michigan. We got a show. It's gonna actually be us, radio, and one of the guys from Enchantment. Remember that? Gloria, my Gloria. Beautiful voice, David. I can't think of his last name, but love his voice.
Great.
And we'll see if they're still doing their song in the same key. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so I just want to probably we're going to finish up now, but I just want to say the Prince of Egypt. You did work on that. Now the song, the miracle song. Well, when you believe. So Whitney and Mariah, obviously. Which part?
Right.
What were you a part of in that movie?
Well, again, Hans Zimmer. He did the music for that. And I was doing a lot of work for DreamWorks. It started with Shrek. I'm singing on Shrek, and then did Prince of Egypt. So, do you know what a source cue is? No. So if you listen to the movie, I'm not on the Miracle song. That was done for the movie as a record. But in the movie, you'll be hearing songs and stuff, or kind of like when we did Shrek. We did do I Believe, and that whole karaoke ending. But I'll give you an example. The movie RV with Robin Williams. I'm singing on that, and you will hear like when he's trying to get he's in the wilderness, and he's not in the wilderness, but he's trying to get reception to his cell phone, and you will hear some and those are source cues. That's it's just some vocals in the background, but it's not like a featured song. But you're doing some harmonies and stuff. It's stuff like that. So I did a lot of that on the Prince of Egypt.
Like ad libs.
But yeah, matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you about an ad lib that blew me away. So Little Mermaid. The original Little Mermaid was one of our first animated films I'm singing on, right? So we do Under the Sea, but we're singing Under the Sea, all the backgrounds. Then we sing that that song that starts the movie, Mysterious Fathoms Below, right? So then we do Kiss the Girl, right? And we doing all those little flamencos like, yeah, 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 all that. But then we go doing the, why don't you kiss the, and so anyway, we finish. And one of the guys says, Philip, and this was in 1984, he says, can you do some ad libs? And I'm thinking, this is a cartoon. I'm like, because we're doing all these different voices. I'm like, what type of what type of ad libs are you talking about? He said, just do some. I mean, I seriously was like, this is a cartoon. He said, no, Philip, do what you do. I said, you serious? Okay. So you listen at the end of Kiss the Girl goes, why don't you kiss the, and you'll hear, go on and kiss the girl. Go on and kiss the girl. Go on and kiss the girl. I'm doing all of that at the end of Kiss the Girl on The Little Mermaid. And I was like, okay. But then I learned something. When you sing in background, let's say we're doing a group, you get paid for that. But when you do ad libs, it's considered a step out. You get another payment. I learned that in 1984. So then when they say, Philip, you want to do some ad libs? I'll go, sure. Hey, Aaron, it was Jehovah said, "Boy, would you shut up?" It was Jehovah said, "Boy, would you shut up and sing some ad libs?"
And there you are, Griffin. That's perfect.
I'm serious. But yeah, that I learned from that movie, seriously. So when people ask me ad libs, I'm like, sure.
Change your life
Again,
right there.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, to this day, I'm still getting money from Little Mermaid. They used to put it in the vault and bring it back out, but now it's Disney Plus. So it's not. But still, I was telling this to the school because they asked about payment and stuff. I said, well, it's different than 9 to 5 because you get residuals and royalties, and it can, even though it gets smaller, sometimes it gets bigger. But most of my money, literally right now, is from things I've done in the past. Because I have a pension from the Screen Actors Guild, I have a pension from American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, but that was all past stuff. I still do things, but not to the degree that I used to do them. So, yeah. And then, the live shows and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, you set the groundwork. I mean, that's just as a result of your hard work and your in the industry that you're in. So, I mean, we could all apply that with whatever we're doing in our secular work.
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah. I mean, that's
right.
that's motivational.
Yeah. So it's been, again, it's been a blessing. But yeah, that was these cartoons and stuff.
Some of us only be ad-libbing in the shower, but
yeah, right. But yes, so Prince of Egypt was more source cues. When we did Shrek, that was a featured song. When I saw her face, I'm a believer. That's a featured song. So in movies it's different. You could do source cues where you're just doing some sounds. Perfect example: the movie Dinosaur, the Disney movie Dinosaur. It was the first time they had the CGI with real, and so James Newton Howard was he did the score for that film, and I used to do a bunch of records with him. So he calls me to put a group together. But we're doing like some African chants. Matter of fact, they had a guy named Labo M. He's the one that's singing Na Sigonia Mapakitsi for the Lion King. So he was giving us some serious rhythms on some of the stuff we're doing. Like, it's like you got this groove going. It's like, wow, man, wait a minute, where are you putting this? It was so cool. So as you listen to that, those are source cues. So you had these monkeys jumping in the trees and stuff, and that's us doing all that African stuff.
Mama Sama stuff.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
That's what an amazing conversation we've had about your career and there's always positives we can take from what you've done and how we can also do things and live our own lives as well. Whether it's
Exactly.
music or a positive mindset, a great attitude, humility can take us a long way in life.
Oh, of course. Exactly. Yeah. I kept telling the students the other day, I said, if you do something, you get to do something, don't get cocky. As I said, trust me, it's not going to do you well. You know what I mean? I said, I know that the reason I've been doing music since I was 14, never had a 9 to 5. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm 66. So that's what, 52 years. I said, I know because I was never this, jerk to work with. You know what I mean? And that goes a long way. And I said, you never know where people are going to be. Like there's this website, it's an educational website called abcmouse.com. And they use it here in the United States for schools and everything. So one day a lady who had sung with 25 years prior, and there was some other singers there, and she said, does anybody know how to get a hold of Phillip Ingram? There was a buddy named Randy Crenshaw. Him and I did a lot of stuff together. He said, oh, I know Phillip. I got his number. She said, I've always liked him, and he was so nice to work with. 25 years later. And I did about 12 songs for this, and I got a lot of friends, the kids are coming up and say, Phillip, did you sing the letter M? I'm like, yeah. And like, I knew that was you. It's like, I'm sitting up here watching my kids. I'm like, that's Phillip, so you see what I mean?
Your
If you go
signature
on
sound.
YouTube, type in the letter M, ABC Mouse, you'll see this. It's like a blueberry white. It's like he's a cartoon character. He's blue and he's playing the piano, singing the letter M.
I might make it
Yeah.
my ring.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was a cool song. It's like Max the monkey mashed mangoes and melons and mashed that fish off with a cherry. I mean, it's a letter M. I mean, it's cool, but we did a bunch of stuff for that for ABC Mouse, but all from someone that I met 25 years prior, who is now the vice president of ABC. See what I'm saying? That's why relationships are so important. Don't be that's why I told the kids, don't be it's all based on relationships. And the buddy I was doing it with, his name was Sam, his daughter goes there. That's how he asked me to do that with him. And he's a keyboard player that's had, a lot of hits and stuff himself, but he's still very humble and we've been friends for over 30 years. So
That's just a prime example of how we can all benefit from the similar type of attitude in life, for sure. Yep.
Exactly.
But your journey in music is something that not everyone has, and I mean, but to know that, especially being from Australia, that's just how involved you were in the greatness of the 70s and 80s, R&B, soul, and then what became of your career after that is just very, very, very motivational. Yeah. So thank you for your time. Phillip. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I will send you the credit sheet too. So.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely have a look for sure. All right, cool.
Man.
Don't go away too far because yeah, we're gonna talk about a bit about basketball, but yeah, for just briefly. But
okay,
yeah.
Sounds good.
But thank you so much for your time. Yeah, we'll see you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Bye. Okay, wait, stay there. I'll edit that out. Okay, let's continue with the basketball. It won't be too much longer. Are you okay with that? Just maybe 10 minutes or less.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're already 2 hours. Like, what time is it? What time is it for you?
It's almost 5 a.m. So.
Oh wow!
It's okay.
You got up early.
Yeah, I'm always up early anyway for work, really. But today it's Saturday, so yeah, it's okay.
Oh yeah.
My schedule is
I do 5 a.m. 2 days a week. I used to do it a lot more because I've been pioneering back then. It was when I came in, it was 1,000 hours. Then it went to 840. Now it's down to 600. So I do Monday and Wednesday 5 a.m. I have a van, and we do bus stops and stuff. I've been doing that for years. Matter of fact, I've instructed 9 pioneer schools, and I've gone 5 as a student. So,
Oh, right.
and
Okay.
I have this phrase that I've been using for years, because putting faith in Jehovah, and that's Jehovah's got this 3 words. I said the whole Bible summed up in that. I said Israelites facing the Red Sea, Jehovah's got this. You fine. You mean the Syrians, one angel, no matter what scenario we're in, right? So I have to show you what the students got me. I just did a August 5th through 10th. One of the nicest gifts I've ever had. And you saw my wall, with the gold records and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Different ones. But look what they did, and they all signed it. Let me see. I got to see. They did this. Look at this.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Jehovah's got this.
Oh.
And then they all signed it with the pioneer picture. Let me see if I can. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, let me come back. There you go. There you go.
Are they witness students? Oh, no, that's the pioneer school.
Yeah, this is what I taught in August 5th through 10th. And this is what they gave me. It says, we're jamming. And this says, Pioneer Class 2024. Jehovah's got this. They all signed it.
That's so nice. Oh, that's so sweet.
So now it's part of my wall with my other records and stuff. And that's why they did it in gold. See, that's why they did it in gold. Ain't that cool?
It's amazing, just to see the love of the brotherhood and me personally, like, so I work a 9 to 5, my wife as well, but our kids we're very devout. As I said, I went through mental health issues like 6 years ago, really bad. Like it was the worst thing. But now I'm better than ever. But I created my account because it felt good just to post some guitar related stuff that I loved, And then it just kept going and going. So I'm going with it, and now it's at the point where it was predominantly like all the like rock metal stuff that I sort of grew up. But I listened to both. I've listened to the R&B soul through my mom as well. So now it's point where I feel I can do whatever I want, so I'm introducing the R&B soul funk side, and I'm playing stuff as well, and I'm just saying I think, like, for example, David Williams is my goat guitarist, funk guitarist. He's relatively unknown, which is like criminal to me, but
and he's played a lot of stuff.
I know
a lot of the Jackson stuff, and
iconic, but. And he was so humble as well, And I'm like, it's from
I worked a lot with David as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's what Austin, he messaged on. I did a post about David. He did for MTV, and he's just explaining how he basically. He didn't even say it. Actually, Jennifer Batten came after and said, "Oh, he's the creator of all these iconic MJ riffs," and he's sort of like awkward, like
right.
So humble, but then Austin messaged on that, and he said, he used to call him his uncle. So he was like, and I said, so I reached out to him because I said, because he was so influential for me. I mean,
but no, David was phenomenal and crazy, good crazy. We had a lot of fun. We did some records and stuff together.
So cool.
But when we did that show with Quincy, Carlos Rios was the guitar player.
Okay.
You remember with Carlos?
No.
He's phenomenal. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you mean the one the tribute sort of Quincy 60 years?
No. The Dude tour.
Oh, the Dude. Oh, you're
the Dude tour.
Yeah.
That was Carlos. Carlos Rios. Yeah.
Carlos Rios. What did he play in?
Say it again.
What sort of records did he play
in? Let me look up. I'm in front of my computer now. Carlos Rios, guitar. Oh, you look him up. He's got a bunch of stuff here on YouTube.
Okay, cool.
I just knew him from sessions and working with him with Quincy. Oh
yeah, cool.
Yeah, but he's phenomenal.
All right, let's do the basketball stuff, and then I'll let you go. Like, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm very thankful that you can be available.
Tell your family I said hello.
I shall. Thank you. I really appreciate it.